Hey Tyrants, welcome to the crew. I'm Lord Janda, and this is my Let's Play of Tyranny. We're working through talking with our companions, and we're about to talk to our last and newest companion, Ebb. Okay. Ooh, okay, I learned the Sigil of Life spell core. Oh, that's handy, so I can make my own healing spells.
At your service, Fatebinder.
No.
What do you need?
Barrick. Fatebinder, if you have a moment. Barrick stands at attention, his rigid bearing making of him an unmoving statue. There have been a number of times since I came to your service in which I have not agreed fully with your choices. That said, never have I truly questioned your judgment. I hope this pattern holds after you hear the request I now make of you. What do you want? I hoped that perhaps the adjudicator would hear my case. What case is that? I have been encased in this. He wraps a gauntlet against the shards of corroded iron and bronze that sweep across his chest. Shell, since Kairos' Edict of Storms made a grave of old Stalwart. It occurred in service to the Overlord, and I would ask that the Overlord free me of its burden. I mean, Tunon can't order Kairos to take your armor off. I wasn't going to ask for the Overlord to do it personally. His metal plates grind together as he shifts. The Forge-bound Guild swore its services to the Adjudicator. If any hope of my freedom from this carapace exists, it lies with them. Very well, I'll make your case. Thank you, Fatebinder. The salute rings like a poorly cast bell. I eagerly await the Archon's judgment. Okay, now... We did get that quest about that, yeah. So, we need to go meet Tunon. But first, I want to talk to Ebb. Since we just do nothing.
Salutations, Fatebinder. Or should I now call you Lord of Vendrian's Well? The Spire King? Prince of the suggestive vertical slab.
Fatebinder is fine. No need for other titles, Ebb.
That is how I met you, so that's how it's gonna stick in my mind. So if I might ask, what is your plan now? The edict no longer looms overhead, and Kairos' conquest of the Tiers seems to be slipping. What with the armies and civil war.
Well, first order of business, we're gonna have to go speak with Tunon.
I would counsel you to do just that. I'm sure the events of Vendrian's Well are best explained from your mouth to Tunon's ears. Furthermore, I'd guess the Archon of Justice would want to know your take on the Archons and their divide.
After that, we're gonna crush the remaining local opposition and complete the conquest.
I see. I'm sure there's little I can do to persuade you otherwise. Just consider that the people of the Tiers will someday bow to Kairos. Why not have them bow to you instead?
Oh, she's trying to subvert us now. Okay. Well, I am improvising. Any suggestions?
My first suggestion would be to build a boat. Something durable, and take our chances on the high seas far from Kairos.
That is not a good suggestion, Ebb.
I have a second and more practical suggestion. Look to the horizon and slightly up. By that I mean the other spires. We should see what's atop the others. Otherwise someone else might look first.
That is actually a reasonable suggestion. I don't suppose you've heard of anyone else awakening spires?
Queens and kings of past ages have claimed the spires in the sense of, hey look, I put up a scaffold and hung a banner 1/10 of the height of a spire. But that's nowhere near the same thing as what we all just saw. So I say, let's see if the other spires react to you the same way this one does. If we don't, I'll take that as your way of saying you suffer from debilitating acrophobia. Well, short of Tunon giving you orders on pain of death, you have the luxury of acting on your own volition. Though the Scarlet Chorus are likely to come for you.
Yes, clearly we're gonna have to figure this whole Civil War thing out.
Whatever you decide, I'm at your disposal.
Alright, well. Try anything to push this, and you'll wish you were taken by Naran.
Understood. I was once your enemy. I know my place.
Oh, good. I just got an achievement for reaching maximum fear with a companion. Have a moment to speak further?
What is it you need?
We should discuss matters at hand.
Oh, we're working with the disfavored. You want my advice? My advice would be to get close to Graven Ash and plunge a poisoned shiv in his ear.
Glare angrily.
Yeah, right. I'm speaking out of line. But I don't really know what to say here. I hate the disfavored, but I'm sworn to your cause, so my honest opinion won't do anyone any good. No,
Gotcha.
we're working with the disfavored.
Yes, okay.
Right. I'm speaking out of line.
Alright, I have
Ask
some
away.
questions. This is gonna be the long section then. Alright. Let's talk about magic.
You know, I normally charge for this, but for you...
Eb smiles, awaiting your query. Alright, what can you tell me about the School of Tides?
Now, you know that's a very personal question. The knowledge I have is a centuries-old gift from the Archon of Tides. I would sooner discard my life than the sanctity of that gift. I will speak in generalities only.
Ask. Worst I can do is not tell you. How do you influence Taratis' grave? Trade secret, not one I'm going to talk about. The School of Tides dies with me, and so too will this. And don't bother trying to change my mind on this matter, it'll just get ugly quick. I see. How do you influence ice, mist, and other forms of water? She's going to not tell me. With years of training. Now look, most of these secrets have already been stolen ages ago by the sages. Doesn't mean I'm going to tell you just because the secret's already out. But if it means you can go ask someone else if you really... It means you can go ask someone else if you really feel so entitled to know. And before you ask, I've learned plenty from knowledge stolen by the sages, but no, I don't know how to do what Eb does, magically or otherwise. Can you teach me what you know? When you spared my life, I did say I would train you. So be it. Eb lets out a long sigh, her eyes scanning the ground for a long moment. Well, that kind of seems like she's going to answer those previous two questions then. First things first. This is the sigil of occulted jade, Archon of Tides. Watch carefully. Eb holds up her right hand, curling her palm as she fans her fingers. With a whip of her wrist, she scribes a pattern in the air, her fingers glowing an orange hue for a moment as she traces in the air. Okay, I gained 5 control Gravelight skill ranks. For several hours, you mimic Eb's gestures while absorbing her biographical anecdotes about the Archon's life, times, and power. At last, the moment occurs where the understanding clicks. You're no longer aping her movements, but willfully tapping into the power of the Archon. I'd ask that you use this knowledge wisely, but it's not like I do. Now, if you excuse me, I'm talked out for the moment. Perhaps another time. Yes, how about, right now? Eb nods at your approach and offers a curt bow.
What is it you need? Ask away.
More questions.
You know, I normally charge for this, but for you... At some point, I should sit you down for a
What are the philosophical teachings of your magic? But there's a question I can answer. It would surprise you little to learn that we see all things, people, wars, seasons, to be cyclical, waxing and waning through their various forms like the tides in the light of Taratis' grave. Oh, Taratis' grave is the moon, that's right, okay, yeah. Taratis' grave is tidally locked. Okay. The mind is limited. We're born and spend our lives dodging death. We expect all stories to have a beginning and an end. We assume all things start and stop just like us. In truth, all things are cycles. Some by a matter of minutes, others by matters of years or lifetimes. In the School of Tides, we appreciate patterns of all sorts. Most are called to the depths, others find their interests skybound. Many still find the tides of human emotion and political fortunes far more intriguing than inanimate tides found in the orbits and oceans. So, from what Archon do the Tidecasters draw upon? Well, she already told me. The first Tidecasters were given the gift of magic by our school's founder, Occulted Jade, Archon of Tides. Founder of the school and its only ruler, she wore the title Archon, but Occulted Jade never bowed to Kairos, though many have tried to compel her to do so. Having arrived with the settlers that made landfall at Five Wives, she's perhaps the oldest known living Tearsman. Capable of manipulating the oceans, the moons, and all the transitory forms of water, Occulted Jade used her magic to form a cabal of seafaring traders, musicians, and academicians. And it was the dedication to the arts that helped the school endure, for by teaching these trades to the children of noble families, the school remained in the good graces of the realms. Being able to control most anything cyclical and fluid, Occulted Jade has lived for centuries and would still be alive today, but none know with certainty. In the years before the conquest, the School of Tides discovered the Overlord's plan to invade. Despite all assumptions that the Tyr's resident Archon would defend her school and home, to the surprise of everyone, the Archon vanished across the seas, taking nearly the entire School of Tides with her into exile across uncharted waters. I mean, probably the wisest move, except with the possibility that there's nothing out there to go to, but she would have lost. It's one Archon against all the rest. Though she was not of Kairos' ilk, she was as powerful as any Archon, and from her name and legacy we can mimic the moon's pull on the seas and change the currents. And it's from her that we have spells to turn the moon's pleasant hues into a baleful ray of searing gravelight. Gravelight is the magical term for the light of the moon Taratis' grave, specifically when harnessed and manipulated for nefarious purposes.
While the moon's rays are normally incapable of causing so much as a mild sunburn, the tidecasters have long studied magic that can concentrate these rays into bolts and beams of searing doom. The tidecasters have spent centuries trying to mimic and control the moon's tidal pull in the oceans, and will often mention that diverting moonlight is the easy stuff compared to pulling and pushing the tides. But modern times have forced the School of Tides to concentrate on the more martial applications of this magic. I'm guessing you can tell me more than I ever wanted to know about the moons? You'd be right. My magic is generally associated with the moon Taratus Grave, but you have to know where Interloper is in the sky when mucking about with mystic forces. Right? Taratus Grave's the big one, right? Tell me about it. Taratus Grave is fixed in the sky, always overhead. What kind of idiot am I that I don't know the basics about the moons that I can look up and see? Taratus Grave is fixed in the sky, always overhead, day and night. It was first named by folks living far to the east. They'd look to the west and see the moon like a permanent hill on the horizon. A grave where the sun dies each evening. That's how the older folks saw it. If you live in the western part of the world, Taratus Grave is overhead all the time. This means that day and night it's reflecting the sun's rays, and if you know what you're doing, it doesn't just reflect, it magnifies. Interloper's the one that moves in the sky, if I remember the lessons correctly. Exactly. Interloper orbits Taratus at a steady clip, and its orbit sometimes crosses in front of Taratus Grave, leading to mystical calamity if you don't know what you're doing. So do you control water, or do you mimic the tidal effects the moons have on water? Both, actually. I'm amused you're keen on the difference. Our spells of ice and mist affect water directly, but are of limited volume. Displacing your own body weight in water is no mean feat. But if I were to move an ocean current, I'd drive myself nuts moving water in front of a boat a little at a time. That's where I'd use a cantrip to simulate a tidal pull. Alright. You heard anything from the tidecasters that left before the war? No, and I don't like entertaining the hope. Those cowards are all gone. If they didn't die at sea, they're dead to me. I reserve the right to be pleasantly surprised if they come back eager to fight the good fight, but I'm not holding my breath. All the brave tidecasters died, present company excepted. Alright, how about other arcane matters?
You know, I normally charge for this.
You know anything about the
but for you-
Archons? Enough to know I'm out of my element. That is to say, I've studied the many Archons a great deal, and I have a great number of hypotheses and conjectures, but, well, I'm no expert yet. And like most who've invoked the Archons of times past to work magic, I do wonder what difference of birth or experience gives one the magical potential to be an Archon. Most of my studies have been into the question of origins of form. It's known we can emulate the magic of Archons that came before us, but is it possible to tap into the magic of Archons yet to be? So far, the answer seems to be no. She looks at the ground with a rumpled smirk. Know anything about the old walls and the spires? Not enough. Never enough, Eb smiles, twirling her staff in her hands. As a child, I was terrified of the old walls. I think that's true of most folk. Now that I can arc gravelight with a wiggle of my fingers, well, I think when I'm a shriveled old hag, dying in the old walls would be a great way to go. What can you tell me of the Bane? What I know is largely taken from Master Cambriel's work and some near-fatal experience venturing close to the old walls. As best I understand it, the Banes are bits of magical will that have an extended life of their own. I'm of the belief they nest or reproduce in the old walls, the only place you regularly find them. Our magic attracts the Bane, that much I know to be true firsthand. Again, this is personal theory, but I'm guessing they eat or drink magic, so... Our spells are invitations to dine.
Ask away.
Could be. Alright,
You know, I normally charge for... Ask away.
tell me about yourself. No, I'm not here to gab or flirt or whatever else is on your mind. If you have orders, that's one thing, but I don't want to discuss folks I've lost or other such things. Not with you. Wasn't a suggestion, Eb. I'm well aware, but I've nothing to talk about. The life I had is gone, and the life I have now is, well, this, my service to you. Everything else is best forgotten. Alright.
Ask away.
About the people of the Tears.
We all know how to swim, and we all know how to fight. Most Northmen are lucky to make half that boast. What would you like to know?
Well, I'm curious about the people. I'm surprised. I never would have guessed you care a sailor's cuss for the people of the Tears. If you did, you wouldn't join a giant mob of rapists and pillagers to conquer us all. Ask a sage if you're curious about our culture. How about the resistors to Kairos?
Aside from the ones you slew? Well, the Vendrian Guard were the most staunch opponents of Kairos. With their passing, the Overlord's rule is absolute. Well, aside from the local Archons being in a state of civil war.
There is that.
Was there a particular group you wish to discuss?
Tell me about the Unbroken.
The Unbroken is the name of the military of the now fallen realm of Stalwart. Every citizen of Stalwart was trained to fight, and all were expected to answer the rallying cry of the Regents. the ruling small council of the realm. A decade ago, Stalwart was the ass end of jokes Tearsmen would tell each other. The people of Stalwart are obnoxiously proud of a long history of being invaded, but never losing. The disfavored put an end to their vaunted record of victory. The Unbroken still persist, albeit marginally so. The disfavored withdrew after the Edict of Storms began shredding the landscape. Their holdfast of Sentinel Stand Keep was never taken, and the citizen army, though scattered, could still be rallied.
Alright, tell me about the Stonestalker tribe.
Kairos' war was disastrous to the human realm of Azure, but a stroke of good luck for the numerous beastmen that toiled in Azure's endless wheat fields. With the masters all dead, the serfs have been set free. The Stonestalkers are a tribe born from these newly freed beasts. I imagine they would never bow to Kairos or the Archons. Too many generations have been enslaved. I'd wager anything they'll die before they ever bow. Beastmen understand strength and leadership, but it's always in the concrete sense. I can't pretend to know how they think, but I could never imagine them accepting an absent Prima. A distant ruler they can't see or smell seems a bit too abstract.
I see. How about the Bronze Brotherhood?
The Bronze Brotherhood is one of the most feared and famous of the Free City mercenary companies. They serve the highest bidder, and during the war, that was Kairos. Most of the Brotherhood perished in the war, but a handful. The crew hired to work at Lethian's Crossing. They got to babysit the Forge-bound and survived the last few years with minor losses. The band is too small to be a serious threat to the disfavored or the Chorus, but they are scourge-worshipping berserks that will adopt any enemy for the right price. Maybe even Kairos.
Any other remnants of the Younger Realms that could still rise against Kairos?
Several sages came to our aid during the Second Battle of Vendrian's Well. I at first thought they meant to kill me, but instead they put their lives on the line for us.
Yes, there were some.
They spoke of others in their guild braving the Edict of Fire to salvage lore from the burning library. Though I may find them untrustworthy, it must be said that the sages have a certain fearlessness toward the Overlord. Perhaps that could be kindled further. Historically speaking, an alliance with the School of Ink and Quill is just asking to have your efforts stolen and your goals undermined. Mark my words, some things never change.
Well, the sages could be a valuable resource, and if so, we'd be fools not to use them.
Well, perhaps we can shove them in front of the enemy. And the ones that volunteered at Vendrian's Well weren't all bad.
Alright, what else? What can you tell me of the different nations of the tiers? Before Kairos came, the tiers were the Younger Realms, the Bastard Tier, and the Free Cities, in about that order of prominence. We all trace our roots back to the Five Wives, though sometimes a bit of ancestral shoreline seems all we have in common. Tell me about the Younger Realms. Haven, Azure, Apex, and Stalwart have been the four major forces of the tiers for the last 4 centuries. A few other dynasties have tried their hand, but all eventually were defeated or absorbed into the 4 we know today. Not sure when the term younger came into fashion, but it's always been a term of humble contrast. Just look at the old walls. Someone was here before us and built them. Don't know really anything about them, but it stands to reason there used to be an older realms that did all the construction. Before Kairos, tell me about the Bastard Tier. It's the northernmost of the tiers and the choke point to the Northern Empire. It's been a hub of trade for centuries, and a long line of merchant families and private armies have kept the realm largely lawless. Though many of us used to joke about the Bastard City being sacked by rabid dogs, Tunon's capture of the city was a terrible blow to the morale of the tiersmen. We knew that day Kairos was more than just a fun story to scare your kids. And what about the Free Cities? There is little free about the Free Cities, save for their independence from the Younger Realms. They're not physically adjacent, but rather politically aligned by their shared hatred of the other realms. Most all the Free Cities were defeated with little effort by Kairos' forces. The way I heard it, Nerat just had to have agents higher up their mercenaries and order them to simply be elsewhere when the armies of the Overlord arrive. Yeah, that's the trouble with depending on a mercenary army when someone much richer is your enemy. Alright, what else?
Ask away.
Or can you tell me about the Archons in the tiers?
Not entirely sure. Which is to say, there was a time I studied my enemy in great detail, but I've recently come to learn that much of my information was little more than lies and misdirection.
Well, what do you know about the voices of Nerat? The Archon of Secrets lives up to his name. If he weren't so loathsome a beast, I'd half admire his master of the arcane magical arts. They say he knows all the sigils lost to history, but I've also heard it said all that stolen knowledge is why he speaks in his different voices. But in truth, I'm learning that most of what I know is just lies and misdirection. Though I guess he'd be a poor Archon of Secrets if I had my facts straight. And that's true enough. What do you know about Graven Ash? Before the conquest, I assumed Graven Ash a harmless old man, an Archon in name only, past his prime. I could not have been more wrong. Many have underestimated the great general by his age. Few of them have made the mistake twice. Ash is a remarkable general. He's led his tiny band of disfavored on a nearly unstoppable rampage of the Tears. But he does not seem to win his wars with obvious displays of mystic powers, but with old-fashioned leadership and good soldiers. A year or so back, at our Blue Flag talk with the commander, I was told that the Archon knows the name of every soldier under his command, living and dead. The way that his favorites speak of Ash, you'd think he raised each of them from the cradle. What do you know about Cairn? Enough. She inhales sharply, folding her arms with a scowl. Why the hostility? The Archon of Stone destroyed much that I hold dear. I'm glad he's dead. What more need I say? Was she from Azure? Maybe. What do you know of Siren? I'm sure there may be younger Archons in the historical records, but Siren's certainly an unusually powerful child. It said half the Scarlet Chorus was recruited by Siren's persuasive song, and I'd not doubt it. I also know the voices of Narat put a shackle on her power. Probably feared she'd become the favorite of the rabble. Okay.
Ask away.
What do you know of Arcane Society?
I know a great deal of the mages of the Tears, or at least their history. Most are dead now. I know a little less about the guilds sworn to Kairos as Archons, but I try to make an effort to know my opposition.
Alright. What do you know about the Earthshakers? The Earthshakers are the disciples of Cairn, Archon of Stone, and they share their master's command of tremors and soil. And they also share Cairn's aloof, brooding temperament. What I gather, the Earthshakers serve the disfavored, but the relationship has been deeply strained by Cairn's fall from grace. I can imagine there's the fear Cairn shared with them, something subversive or treasonous. What about Blood Chanters? The Blood Chanters are the voices in Narat's cabal of mages. Their magic is taken from the Sigil of Siren and from techniques stolen from the School of Wild Wrath, namely their magic of fire as learned from Thousand Embers, Archon of Fire. They barely qualify as a proper school or guild, most of them barely literate, and I bet most of them didn't learn a damn thing, just had their knowledge shoved into their heads by Narat. They've all the brutal buffoonery of the chorus, but with the magic to make their bloodlust contagious. Their only redeeming feature? Yes, they make the sages seem not half bad. What about the Forgebound? The Forgebound have an unusual sort of magic. They specialize in slow, painstaking rituals that do not produce the dazzling blast of energy and shards of flying ice like my own magic. Instead, their spells render them immune to the fires of the forge and at one with their tools of the trade. I admit a bit of fascination with the guild. I much preferred the power and brutality of my own magic, but if I lived in a calmer, wiser time, I think there could be great satisfaction in using magic to become the master of one's craft. How about the School of Ink and Quill? Clearly you don't like each other. Behind the Tidecasters, the sages of the School of Ink and Quill are the second oldest arcane institution in the Tiers. We go back a ways. There's a lot of bad blood. If I'm being objective, the sages claim to be scholars interested in collecting, archiving, and preserving lore from and for all humanity. They're quite keen to gather lore, but in no sense do they seek to share their knowledge with their Tiersmen. Many of our secrets have been pilfered by sages' spies over the centuries, and we're not alone. The sages have the secrets of many other guilds. Their generations of theft have made them versatile and dangerous. And what about the School of Tides? Our patron, occulted Jade, Archon of Tides, is as old as the settlers of the Five Wives, and for nearly 5 centuries we were masters of the coasts and the rivers. These days it's a school of one. You're looking at it. She thumps her chest with a bemused smirk. So, how come your Archon didn't fight in the war? About a year or so before the troops arrived in the Bastard Tier, occulted Jade proclaimed the age of the Tiers was over and said she'd depart southwest into unknown, unending ocean rather than face Kairos. Most of my guildmates went along, choosing to risk the endless high seas rather than risk battle. A few of us, the militants, as our peaceful brethren dubbed us, chose to stand and fight. To my knowledge, I'm the last of those who decided to stay and fight. Alright. What was your school like before the war? There was a time when the Tidecasters were the most powerful guild of the Tiers. The Kingdom of Haven accepted us as defenders of sea trade, and the noble houses gave us peace and quiet in exchange for teaching their sons and daughters music, writing, and navigation. Though the other schools coveted our knowledge, they feared our wrath. Between our destructive magic and our Archon patron, others knew that attacking us meant suicide. How'd the school fall? Now, the Archon Cairn issued a challenge, and Masters Fulvax, Hagravar, and Cambril leapt at the chance. I told them it was a hopeless clash. I think they were ready to die. As the youngest tidecaster still in the tiers, I exercised the better part of valor and went into hiding, but then my sense of shame kicked in, and, well, that's about when I fell in with the Vendrian guard. And she is a bit of a coward, huh? It's a good thing for us, I guess, but could be a problem still. Old as the 5 wives? Now, by all accounts, the cult of Jade was among the initial settlers that made landfall in the tiers before Kairos first cast an edict. Though she's a bit old and stooped, she looked amazing for nearly 500. Alright.
I know a great deal of the mages of
Well,
the
the other
tiers.
magical schools and
Or at
guilds.
least
There have been several to crop up and wither across the centuries. The Cutters Guild took their healing magic north centuries ago. The School of Flowering Winter always limped along as an inconsequential group of gardeners. Most other schools in the tiers fizzled out early, slain by suspicious neighbors, or subverted and destroyed by one of the big 3 schools.
Ask away.
Alright. How do you feel about our companions? What do you make of Barrack?
My one concern with Barrack is that he's still loyal to Graven Ash and not to you. Barrack seems steadfast, faithful, and dependable. But if it comes down to you versus Graven Ash, therein lies the test.
If he weren't a technical asset, it'd be fun to try and pry him out of that suit. Curious to see if his midsection is as strong, firm, and taut as I've imagined it should be. Damn it, Ab. What are your thoughts on first?
We should consider ourselves fortunate that one of the most deadly members of the Scarlet Furies considers you a suitable gang leader. That said, I think her involvement with you is entirely suspect. I would wager good money the voices of Neratis listening through her, or perhaps seeing what she sees.
It's really not impossible, to be fair. I don't think she's voluntarily in with anything like that, but it seems very possible. How about Lantry?
Probably the only word thief I haven't wanted to dismember. Him? I'd merely play with an ice knife.
Not very much nicer, Eb, but okay. The Wandering Scholar thing seems an act. It's always an act with the sages, always pretending to know less than they really do. I'm sure he's got 1,000 reasons for why he's not like them or more trustworthy than the rest, but I know his type, and so I don't trust him. Aw, that's high praise coming from you. I'm gonna take this staff and repeatedly jam it into your backside until you prolapse. Damn, Eb. Ah, just like that, balance is restored to all known existence. You had me worried there. Alright.
Ask away.
Let's talk about something else.
What is it you need? Ask away.
Oh, I guess that's it, huh? Okay.
What is it you need?
Okay, so that's the conversations with the companions. Yay. Hold on, let's see. We did get two new cores, in fact. The Sigil of Life. This infuses the target with the energy of the Orphan Midwife, Archon of Rebirth. All but the most serious wounds are healed by this arcane energy. Though the Orphan Midwife was powerful, her gifts were not suited to resisting the armies of Kairos. She was captured and chained, and her powers harnessed to serve Kairos' armies. Many chroniclers of Kairos' empire believe her powers were the driving force behind the empire's quick expansion. Interesting. It is a handy thing to have, I guess. And then we have the Sigil of Tyranny. Someone to control the light of Tyranny's grave, the cold moon that shines on Kairos' empire. Grave light leeches energy for its targets, dealing damage and converting it to health for the caster. Oh, that's kind of handy, yeah. I might even like to have that, honestly. Maybe I could turn, I could turn one of my really short-range spells into... I only have so many spell slots, is the thing, but... I could easily give Lantry one, too. Let's see here. Well, he doesn't have the Lord add that. He has the Lord add this. Well, let's just give it to him as a possibility. Drains health. I'm sure Eb would absolutely hate that, so... extra fun, really. Reputation-wise, let's see. Lantry, yeah, is way past... He's quite loyal to us now. And we got this combo. Wheel of Ages. The Fatebinder and Lantry work together to create a slowing aura around a party member. Foes within range of the aura are slowed. When party members move inside the aura, they will have their hostile effects suspended. Okay, that's kind of handy, actually, yeah. Barrack, we have Iron Storm. We already had that. Well, did we? I think we did. But maybe we didn't. Swords and javelins emerge from Barrack's armor and fly into a cloud of iron above the Fatebinder. These weapons begin to rain down in a storm around the Fatebinder, damaging enemies nearby. Mind you, these are both once per rest. I think we already had Death from Above. We now have this as well. Projects intense flames towards Verse, which she catches on her blades and spins into an aura of wreathing flames around her. Nearby foes take burn damage from the flames while they last. Interesting, so I have both simultaneously there. Okay, and then Ebb, yeah, has maximum fear. Heart of the Storm, Ebb imbues the Fatebinder's weapon with the ability to channel lightning through it. While the effect remains, the Fatebinder's attacks will evoke a powerful electrical explosion. Well, hey, that's handy. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Okay. Alright. In that case, I think it's finally time to go and meet with Tunalm. So let's see here. We have the world map now. We've got, several locations, but we can't actually reach most of them. We are in Vendrian's Well, the name of the central plateau of the Tears, a mountain-ringed valley of rivers, floodplains, and scattered farmland once ruled by House Vendrian of the realm of Apex. At the heart of the valley is the mountain spire, and at the base of the massive stone structure is an old citadel built centuries ago and largely left unused until recent times. And that brings us to the mountain spire, yeah. Which there's only a couple of locations here anyway now. Okay. Then over here, okay, how many spires? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 spires in the Tiers, it would appear. This giant decorative one aside. So the contested lands are where the Burning Library is. These lands lay at the intersection of all 4 younger realms, ruined and depopulated by constant war. They were functionally abandoned centuries ago. This unsettled gap of sovereign power became the home of the mages of the School of Ink and Quill and their library fortress, the Vellum Citadel. Prior to Kairos' conquest of the Tears, the sages declared political neutrality and committed themselves to the collection and dissemination of knowledge. In reality, the sages hoarded their wisdom and manipulated other realms into cycles of war for centuries. This all came to a dramatic end when Kairos' Edict of Fire brought forth volcanic eruptions that turned the contested lands into a burning, ash-strewn wasteland. Burning Library. The sages of the Vellum Citadel publicly swore fealty to Kairos, but from within the safety of their Vellum Citadel, these scholars continued to study and copy forbidden lore, and used magic to repulse any attempts by the disfavored and Scarlet Chorus to claim the Citadel that was promised by the Overlord. In retribution, Kairos proclaimed an Edict of Fire on the Vellum Citadel, turning the home of the School of Ink and Quill into a smoldering ruin now known as the Burning Library. We cannot visit that, though. This was Azure, now the Stone Sea, the name given to what remains of the land of Azure after Kairos' Edict of Stone devastated the landscape. Once a rolling landscape of winding rivers and fertile plains, tectonic shifts have altered the landscape, choking rivers, collapsing roads, and altering the landscape for hundreds of leagues. The howling masses of Narat's horde reside here at Cacophony, amongst the dry, rocky plateaus clustered in the Stone Sea's outer rim. Though not resembling a traditional fortress, the Archon's chosen base of operations is exceedingly difficult to assault. Yeah, we're probably going to have to deal with that at some point. Okay, and here, Iron Hearth. This massive fortress is perched atop the edge of a tier that helps form the Blade Grave's northern border. Graven Ash took the ancient castle during the conquest and now launches all of disfavored operations from this well-defended location. So there's the rival capitals of this civil war thing that's happening. Blade Grave itself, the name given to what remains of the realm of Stalwart after its ruination when Kairos proclaimed the Edict of Storms upon the lands. The magical storm struck the disfavored and unbroken armies during the height of their engagement. Now most of what remains is a blighted landscape of discarded armor and weapons, and high winds of rust and human dust. How fun. And then Sentinel's Stand, the historic home of Stalwart's ruling families, the Regents, protected by 2 massive walls. It was never taken during the conquest. Frustrated with the siege, Kairos issued an edict that severely damaged the castle and left it encased within a massive perpetual tornado. Well, that sucks if you happen to live there. Okay, and then we have Haven. The lords and ladies and lords of the coastal realm of Haven are known to spend as much energy fighting each other as they do the other realms. In recent generations, many of the coastal cities rebelled and became known as the Free Cities, lawless dots along the coast. The majority of the realm's political and economic might resided within them, and by the time of Kairos' conquest of the Tiers, all major coastal powers had declared independence. This left Haven with an ambiguous ruling structure that could not simultaneously weather political infighting and armed conflict, granting Kairos' forces an easy victory. Right. I guess this whole thing is the disputed lands, huh? Like, it kind of makes it look like it's just this, but it's this whole area. Yeah. And the Bastard Tier, named for its position between two realms, the Northern Empire and the Southern Tiers. The Bastard City and its surrounding lands, known as the Bastard Tier, is a melting pot of cultures and a place of commerce and intrigue. The Tiersmen to the south view the Bastard City as a place of wealth and excess, but to the people of the Northern Empire, the Bastard City is little more than a sprawling slum. Tunon, the Adjudicator, established his court in the Bastard City. From this foothold in the Tiers, he and his court of Fatebinders imposed Kairos' laws upon the conquered land. Okay, so we have two locations we can actually visit. The Sunset Spire here, at Lethian's Crossing. Built in the shadows of an old wall's junction, well, sure enough. In the realm of Haven, Lethian's Crossing is a growing trading settlement. The nearby rivers are rich in iron ore, though the locals lack the technology to smelt and forge the element. In the years following Kairos' conquest of the Tiers, the population of Lethian's Crossing swelled, with refugees fleeing the destruction of their homelands. The presence of the forge-bound mining the iron, along with their guards, makes this makeshift settlement a vital resource for Kairos' armies. In the year 429, as governor of Lethian's Crossing in Kairos' name, you're granted control of the settlement to the disfavored. We can travel there in a day, and we can go there, but I think we better go to the Bastard City first. When the Bastard City fell to Kairos' armies, Tunon the Adjudicator, Archon of Justice, claimed the palace for his own. Now Tunon's court serves as the center of law and governance for the Tiers. Oh, I can't just click? Okay, I have to... How do I travel there? I have to, like, walk off a physical edge of this, maybe I have to go down from the Citadel first.
On it.
Probably, yeah. Oh, can I now? Yes, okay.
Thanks for watching, sailors. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider leaving a like or subscribing. New parts will be up every other day on YouTube, or you can watch live on Twitch. Have a nice day, sailors. This is Sea Lord Janda, signing off.